Welcome to the Details of Life. I'm your host, Marcus Wilson, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited about today's episode. I have two former teammates joining the podcast today to talk about some of their experiences. They're coaching at a very high level, D1 athletics, and they have great stories to tell. But before we dive in with them, I need you guys to give me a little bit of feedback. I need a favor from you guys. So, when this whole thing first started, my objective was to bring on successful people, whether it was sports, music, business, and just talk about their journey of what it took to be successful. But what happened was, I started off with some sports figures, and then I brought on a CEO, and my first few episodes were 1,000, 2,000 views, and then I brought on a CEO, it dropped down to 350. I'm like, okay, well, maybe whatever. I don't know what happened on that one. Then the next one, I brought on the multiple sclerosis man of the year. Great story, right? And dropped down to 155 views. Then I brought on a world-renowned doctor, and we were talking about the coronavirus before all this social distancing stuff. She was telling us that it was coming, and it was only 115 views. And so I was thinking, man, if I keep going this route, I'm going to be down to two people. So the people spoke to me. They basically spoke and said, we want to hear you talk about sports and with sports people. So now I've gotten back to that, and, we're rolling again. But, I also want to keep it fresh. The last episode, we brought on Larry Hughes, NBA vet, doing some great things. I had the AAU version where I brought on the 5 different AAU teams. And even with the coaches, they've been different levels and different experiences. Josh Pastner in the ACC, Chris Lowry, associate head coach, David Ragland, assistant coach, Greg Lansing, head coach at Indiana State, mid-major. And so they all have different lenses and different perspectives on their journeys. And so I just want you to keep telling me what you want me to bring out. I'm thinking about getting into some college football. I'm bringing in some college football recruits. But at the end of the day, I want what the people want. So however you reach me, whether it's a comment in the YouTube link, whether it is on Twitter, IG, if you have my cell phone, text me and let me know who you would like to see. And, I don't mind asking people. People are saying yes right now. They want to come on the Details of Life. Let me know who you want to see and I'll reach out to them. So thank you for that. And we're just going to try to keep getting better. So going on today's episode, like I said, I have former teammate Kareem Richardson, who's an assistant coach at Indiana State. Really cool story. He's been a lot of places, Xavier, Wright State. Most notably probably was he was on the 2013 staff of Louisville when they won the national championship. We talk about that. He's been a head coach at UMKC. And then my other former teammate, Chris Hollender, who's now an assistant at Missouri. He hasn't been as many places, but he's had some really cool experiences. This is his second SEC school. He's at Mizzou now. He's been at Mississippi State, coached at Army, coached with Kareem at UMKC, and they both coached at our alma mater, University of Evansville, but at different times. And so great stories. We're teammates. We've been knowing each other 25 years, so it was really cool to kind of catch up with them. We got some inside stories and let you in on some of that, and then they tell their journey. So without further ado, let's go ahead and chime in with Chris Hollender and Kareem Richardson. Ladies and gentlemen, like I just prefaced, man, I'm happy to bring two of my former teammates on to the Details of Life. Kareem Richardson, who's now assistant coach at Indiana State, and Chris Hollender, who's now assistant coach at Missouri. How you guys doing?
Doing well, thanks.
Good to see you guys.
Man, we'll go ahead and dive right in. I know I have some memories of UE, some great, some not so great, but what are some of your best memories, or just memories in general? I guess we'll start with you, Kareem. What were some of your best memories from your time at UE?
Well, I think that's a great one. From the terms of a basketball standpoint, I think really, that run where Final Four going to the NIT was awesome as a player, being able to experience that, going to playing in Madison Square Garden and having that experience. I mean, playing against Indiana. In state, right across, a couple hours away. So playing against those guys was an awesome experience.
Evansville take their first lead since 5 minutes into the game.
Here's Wilson matched up with Lewis. Wilson got a lot of experience on him. Was the leading scorer last year, leading scorer this year. This guy's made a lot of big plays tonight. Hollender, 6 for 6. And he can really pass the basketball. There's Sullivan who can shoot that 3.
Sullivan.
Oh, that's way out of range.
Was it deflected by Guyton? Yes.
Yes, Lembo with the call. Forced the deflection.
11 on the shot clock. 30.9 on the game clock. 72-71 Indiana.
This is great. I'll tell you, great college basketball. I mean, you got two teams in the same state, Trying to pull the upset here, Evansville.
Morales has for it against Patterson. Down to 8 on the shot clock.
Be a passer. This guy can drive. He can penetrate.
Wilson.
He can penetrate.
Evansville takes the lead.
It's the Indiana. No timeout. Running the ball up the court. You've got to look for Reed defensively. Right now, you got to look for Reed or Patterson. He's got to make the big play.
Reed getting the pick.
There's Reed driving to the goal.
Doesn't get the roll.
Ball on the floor.
Picked by Evansville. Indiana's Patterson after it. Knocked away with 1.2 left. It'll belong to Indiana.
Wow. Are they jumping with joy down in Evansville in terms of smelling a W?
But probably the best thing is things like this, man, is where, lifelong relationships and friendships that we've gone. I mean, you yourself and Chris and all of us have stayed in contact over these years, and so that's always probably the best. And there's other guys from the teammates that we played with that we still are very tight. And so those we always talk about it, those lifelong relationships in college, and we still have those.
How about you, Chris?
Exactly what Kareem said would have been my answer as well. When we all got recruited by Coach to play at Evansville, the one thing that he always hammered home for us was the commitment, the relationships, and the commitment that he's going to have to all of us as a mentor and as a coach. He's fulfilled those things for me. He was the guy who gave me my first shot in coaching. So that part of it for me, the relationships with the coaching staff, all of them, almost all of them, and then obviously the friendships that we've all built and continue to grow as we've gotten older. And think about all the times that we've called each other to help each other and things that have nothing to do with basketball, things that have to do with life, things that have to do with family. And I think along the lines of what Kareem said, I think that the relationships have been the most important and the most memorable things. I was telling our guys, you can go back and talk about the games that you've played, the games that you've been a part of, and some guys can remember back about points and stuff, but the thing you remember the most is teammates and the times that with your teammates. And that's the things that I cherish the most about my time at Evansville.
I completely agree. Like when I think about you guys in particular, there's two things that stand out. Number one, that you guys were my host, and I stayed with you guys, that first summer that I came down before I got in my dorm. Had a lot of good memories there. I remember I thought I was about to get married. It was we ain't going to get into that. But actually, I will. For everybody, I brought this girlfriend I was dating. I've been dating for a couple months. I bring her down, and, I soon realized that college was something where I was not trying to get married during that time. So it ended pretty quickly. But I stayed with you guys then. And then also, like you said, staying in touch in that NIT run, man, having that experience. And it's always about the relationship. So obviously you guys are both coaching right now, had a lot of successes in different spots. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper later. But, Coach Cruz was an excellent student of the game and a teacher of the game. One of the best at it in terms of X's and O's. I've been around a lot of people, and his mind is brilliant. Did that influence your coaching style, or when did you start to realize that you wanted to start coaching? I guess we could start with you, Chris, on this one. But when did you realize you wanted to start being a coach, and how much of Coach Cruz's style has influenced you along your journey?
I think I really started wanting to be a coach. It probably started for me in high school when I had 3 high school coaches. My freshman year, we had a coach. My sophomore year, we had a coach. And then by my junior year, we had another coach. And the guy that I was closest to ended up being my high school coach my senior year. And he took a lot of interest in me before I became a senior. And what I mean by that is he spent a lot of time with me after practice. He studied the game and wanted to help me get to the next level. So we'd work on things that we weren't working on in practice all the time. His name's Steve Conlon. And I talk to him once a week still to this day. And his investment in me, I really appreciated that, because if I wouldn't have gone to the places, if I wouldn't have my high school coach and my junior college coach and then gone to Evansville, I'm not sure if I'd have gotten to the level of player that I eventually got to, because those guys drug so much out of me and demanded so much and knew I had more and saw more in me. And I have such a great appreciation for that. And I know what that felt like for me. And I felt like it's a way of teaching. It's a way of inspiring. It's a way of motivating. And it just was very appealing to me because I know how it made me feel. So all of those guys combined, my junior college coach has since passed. Obviously, Coach Cruz and Coach Simmons and Coach Sarf and all those guys that we played for. I eventually worked for a couple of those guys, but they got the most out of me, and they believed in me, and they drug me through my hard times. And then when my dad died, they were all there. You know, they were all at the funeral. That was years after college. And that's what I wanted to be. That's what I wanted to do. So really the way that I was coached and the way that I was demanded of, that's what really inspired me to get into coaching.
Yeah, no, like you mentioned, you obviously played for Coach Cruz, coached with him at Army, coached with Coach Simmons at Evansville. So you've had a lot of influence under that coaching tree. Kareem, you kind of went a little bit different route. You've had some other different experiences, and like, not saying that one coaching style is better or worse, but watching your teams play, you play a lot faster pace, and it's just a little bit different style than what Coach Cruz coached as. And so I guess going back to the beginning, when did you know you wanted to coach? And then how did you start to develop some of your coaching style along the way?
Well, I knew I wanted to coach, really after high school. I went, back when we were coming up, and I don't want to sound like old man, but I guess I kind of am in this thing now. But, high school, even when I was after my first year of college, freshman year, back then we would go work different camps. And so, you and I, Marcus, we worked 5-star camp. I worked 5-star camp for 5 summers, all five of my years of college. Went to Kentucky camp. I worked that, with Louisville camp, so would go bounce around through the summers and work different camps because I had in my mind that I wanted to coach and try to soak up as much knowledge as you could, coaching those camps, even though they were freaking dreadful at times. That 5-star working out that heat was no joke. And but with that, I knew I wanted to coach, and so playing for Coach Cruz really helped shape, honestly, my career from the fact of, as you mentioned, Marcus, Coach is a brilliant mind, and kind of like parenting, where you really don't understand things that he was talking about and why things were done and things like that. And I find myself to today, I sound like Coach Cruz more and more each day, by some of the things I say, some of the things that bother me, the coaching points. Even though when I was a head coach at UMKC, we played a little bit faster, still all of the motion concepts and knowing how to see the game and read the game, being able to teach those to the guys was mainly because of Coach Cruz from that time. And even backing it up, and my first graduate assistant position at University of Minneapolis was because of a relationship with Coach Cruz. Coach Waltman was there. Coach Waltman and Coach Cruz we're at IU together, Indiana University together. And so that was kind of my connection to get into the thing, even though Coach Waltman left. And then I went to Indiana State with Coach Waltman, all that because of Coach Cruz. Because I've worked for a lot of different coaches, but it doesn't matter when motion and the way Coach taught it, that we're able, and I say we, because all of us on here are able to pick up things relatively quickly because of our knowledge from Coach Cruz.
I haven't coached nearly at the level of either one of you guys, and we'll get into your journeys along the way, but I did get a chance to coach with him at SLU. And like you said, just being able to understand now that we're older, some of the things he was doing. And one thing that I've seen, and I'm sure you guys can agree, his attention to detail in the scout, I feel is like miles ahead of other coaches that I've seen. And I'm sure that's something that you guys have carried with you. So with that being said, I guess we'll keep it going with you, Kareem, and then come back with Chris. So we've talked about a little bit where you guys have been. So could you let the people know, upon graduation from UE, what your coaching career has been like until now, or where has it led you to?
How much time do we have?
I would say, man, like K. Rich gonna be on here for like 15 minutes.
I'll run through all my stops really quickly. I started off, like I said, right out of college. I went as a graduate assistant at University of Indianapolis. Was there for 2 years. Went to Indiana State with Coach Waltman for 3 years. went to Wright State with Ed Schilling for a year. And then after that came to our alma mater, Evansville, was there for 4 years with Steve Murfeld. And then after that went to UMKC as an assistant for a year. Drake University for 3 years with Mark Phelps, and Xavier with Chris Mack. And then Louisville with Coach Pitino, and then became a head coach at UMKC for 6 years, and now here at Indiana State with Greg Lansing.
Wow, that's a journey, man. But the good thing about that is you get to learn from so many different people. And then another thing that's really, people talk about coaching trees and how people stay loyal. So like you've developed relationships across, the country, and I'm sure which has allowed you to be a good recruiter because, you're in different areas of the country at different times. And so, man, that's awesome. So Chris, where have you been?
When I graduated from college, I went overseas for a year, and then I played 2 years in what would be the G League now. And then I'm like a lot of college students, I moved back home for a couple of months, and my father passed away in 2001, and then about March of, I believe it was 2002 is when I got started. My first stop, I went to West Point with Coach Cruz. I was there 7 years with Coach. Unbelievable place, great experience. And then from there, I left and went back to Evansville like Kareem did. I went from West Point to Evansville. I was with Coach Simmons for 3 years there. And then from there, I went with one of our very good close friends, Rick Ray, to Mississippi State, and was there 3 years. And then when we were let go of Mississippi State, I actually went to UMKC with K. Rich. I was there 2 years, and then now I'm here with Coach Martin. This is my fifth school in 19 years. So I haven't gone as many places, but the one thing I'll say about the places I've been fortunate that all the places I've been are the guys I've known and very well. And this business, it doesn't happen very often that you get the opportunity to go work for guys that you know a lot. Yeah, so I started at 24 years old at West Point was my first job.
So I want to kind of ask you guys some specific questions about your journey so far, and I guess we'll start up with you, Chris. I remember we're talking to you when you were at Army, and you were saying that the guys came and then they had to give another 4 years of service after their playing career. Is that correct?
It's 5, actually.
5 years. So, coaches know how hard it is to recruit anyway, to get kids to come there and to stay for 4 years. How was it recruiting a kid? You've been at 2 SEC schools. I would imagine at SEC schools, whether they turn out to be pros or not, if they're good enough to go to the SEC in high school, people are telling them, oh, you're going to be a pro. Kids say they want to be a pro. You were recruiting at a school where they were coming for 4 years, and they knew after they were done, they weren't going to go play pro basketball. They were going to give 5 more years of service. What was that recruiting like? What was that a different mindset that you had to approach in terms of recruitment? And, how did you go about doing that?
Well, I'm going to answer that 2 separate ways because there's 2 answers to that question. Literally, the March after, or the April after 9/11 was when we got hired. And actually, Kareem came out there. I was thinking about coming out there to work too, and it ended up going a different way. But so it was the beginning of a war. And so not only were we new to a military academy, which as a coach, you have a lot. There's so many different variables that go into coaching. All of them wonderful things. So when I talk about this stuff, I want you to know how I feel about West Point and what it means to me. There's a lot of different things. There's so many more things that you have to do. There's so many more responsibilities that the cadets have. There's so many more things. And all this stuff is just this leadership building place. And so when you'd go into someone's home and you weren't recruiting against another school, you were recruiting against the television, because everything in our world that was going on was about the second Iraq war. And that was the number one question we got is like, okay, if my son in this case comes to West Point, what is his responsibility going to be after he leaves? And which is very fair. And the one thing that we had learned from a lot of people when we did our research and we asked questions, Coach had, thousands of things going through his mind. And we finally got it down to, we are very proud of who we are. And we weren't trying to to hide any of the responsibilities or the things that the cadets had to go through, because we think those things are really wonderful things. That uniform that they wear every day is a wonderful thing. The amount of hours they have to take as freshmen and sophomore, just there's so many things that can be used in a negative. And a lot of times people would try to hide those things. And then when the kids got there, all of a sudden these things existed and they weren't aware of it. So the retention rate was not great. So we hit that stuff head on. We put them with our guys. We let them go when they come on visits. We'd show them. We'd put them in formation. We'd put them in the mess hall. They spend the night with our, like, it was great, and it ended up being really good for us. And we made it a big deal that West Point's a big deal, and especially to your own team. Now you got to think about this. When you're at West Point, you got to recruit a prep school team. You also have a JV team, and then those kids can leave after their sophomore year and still not have any military commitment. So you're recruiting your own team. So you're responsible for basically having 3 full rosters every year, and you're recruiting. I mean, our senior list of guys, probably in the years that I was there, I mean, I think we probably had 300, 400 names on these lists for seniors for one class. Because you got to recruit so many. It's a mass recruitment that becomes smaller as the interest grows, just like anything. But the numbers are inflated because of the number of guys you got to recruit to different areas of your program. But the pro part of it, I want to touch on that, because they've done a really good job, and I think it's still the case of if you have a kid that is good enough. I know they've had some football guys from West Point. There's a guy that plays for the Steelers, I believe, that was there when I was there. He's still playing lineman for the Steelers. They work with you on your what you need, what you owe, or they say or what you're responsible for as far as time afterwards, to allow you to go play professional sports now. So if you're good enough and you're projected to be, and you can do it, that they work with you on that. So that part of it's really cool for those cadets up there. But yeah, the recruitment to West Point, it takes you 2 years just to learn the academy. And then once you learn the academy, then you really start building it up, and you can really, I tell everybody, I'd love for my son to go to West Point.
That's great insight, man. Because I remember the first person that made that jump, at least first person in my memory, was David Robinson. I mean, it wasn't West Point, but it was Navy, and they somehow allowed him to get to the NBA. So that's cool that they do that. And man, I will say, and I'm sure you could concur, when I was at SLU, we were playing up in St. Bonaventure, and Coach Cruz made it a point for our team to stop at West Point and see the campus. And, man, it is by far the most beautiful campus I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. It's right there on the river. I mean, everything is immaculate, man. The students, man, it's mind-blowing. If anybody has the opportunity to stop by there while you're up in New York, I would recommend it.
Yeah, and one thing, and Kareem's been there, but, I mean, I got to live there for 7 years. I lived on campus. You got to think about the history. Like one of the coolest sayings they have is, much of the history we teach was made by those that we taught. Now, so like that is, if that's not a powerful statement, you got to think about much of the history that we teach our kids today was made by the people that we taught at West Point previous. Like you talking about, you walk around campus. I mean, you got statues of Washington and Eisenhower and MacArthur and Patton and these guys that just, and then you feel yourself walking around there and you're like, here I am I'm Chris Hollender from Mattoon, Illinois, up here coaching basketball amongst all this the place reeks of history and reeks of leadership. And it's just it's a wonderful, you can spend days and days and days there just touring that place.
Man, I'm sure just the pride to be a part of something that big is incredible. Man, thank you for that. So Kareem, what I wanted to touch on with you about is you've been at a lot of stops, but I think the one that I wanted to talk about is you were part of the national championship run at Louisville. If I'm not mistaken, that was the same time. That was when Kevin Ware had that really bad leg injury. So, I don't get a lot of people on here that are national, make it to that level. So what was that like being a part of that run? Maybe, what was it like, rallying around Kevin when he had that injury? Anything that around that season that stands out to you?
Well, it was, and Chris can tell you because I talked to him quite a bit throughout the run, and even obviously, taking the job throughout the whole season. It was of all of my years in coaching, it was the toughest year, and it sounds kind of weird. You're like, well, you're part of a national championship, but for me, working with Coach Pitino. He took you and pushed you, kind of like what Chris was talking about with Coach Cruz for him, and how Coach Cruz and the staff pushed him to become the player that he became. From a coaching standpoint, Coach Pitino did that. He pushed you to limits that you didn't think you had. Shoot, man, I went to Louisville and I was 14, 15 years into being an assistant coach. And I had the privilege to be with some great guys that taught me the game, from a coaching standpoint and the business standpoint. So here I am, and Coach Waltman, who I give a ton of credit for, besides Coach Cruz, Coach Waltman, a lot of people don't know about, very similar to Coach Pitino in terms of how much they push you. And so here I am. I was 3 years with Coach Waltman, and who was under Coach Knight, as we all know. And I was like, man, I can handle anything. But get to Louisville at that time, and again, I was fine with the scouting reports. To your point of the details, work, playing under Coach Cruz and all of those things. So I was good with all of that. But it was still the knowledge that he was able to instill in you, but also, again, pushed you, because there were things that from his NBA background that I'd never thought about before, whether it was scouting material. It was like you're looking at, I'll give you an example that I'd never thought about. We pressed and we zoned, we had our matchup zone, we had our man-to-man, and just things like learning and understanding percentages of a team, man versus zone. So a lot of times, we would study those things and figure out, hey, is Mizzou, they shoot 50% versus man? They shoot 30% versus zone. So this game we're going to press you and we're going to go play our zone. I never looked at percentages like that. So there was a method to all of our madness, which seemed like madness to a lot of people. But it was taxing, working for Coach. I mean, you go in there because you wanted everything to be on point, in terms of when you're coming up with a scouting report of why we're going to do this. Why are we going to play our matchup zone? This game we're gonna 1-3-1 underneath out of bounds and match up, because they don't have particular plays after watching. So it took you to a whole nother level of that, which along with Coach Cruz and Coach Waltman's of the world, have certainly bettered me as a coach. But the run was the hardest thing to do, because also the year before I got there, they had made it to the Final Four, Louisville did. And so it was high expectations coming into the year that Coach P thought we could win it all. And you think about that with the guy who's as intense as Coach P is, who's as detailed as he is, and then having those pressures of like, this guy really thinks we can win it all. Obviously, I'd never been in that type of situation of that magnitude, and so you didn't want to be the guy to screw things up in terms of a scouting report or just your day to day. Even throwing recruiting in there, you didn't want to screw anything up. And so it was a lot of sleepless nights, man. Like thinking about how the heck are we going to win this game? Like, what do we got to do? I was talking to a good friend of mine, Kevin Keats. We were talking the other night. You guys might have saw it. They replayed our Big East championship game, our Louisville game versus Syracuse, in the last what they talk about as the Big East. In 2013, we were down 16 in that game, come back and win by, almost 20 points. But the point of it all is, like, at that point in time, we had won 9 straight games. We had won, that would have made 10 straight games. And we finished the year winning 16 straight games. And we didn't know, that we won 16 straight games until literally walking into the tunnel. Coach was being interviewed after the national championship game. He was being interviewed, and a reporter asked him how we were able to win 16 straight games. And I was like, we won 16 straight games? Really? But it's possession, like literally it was possession by possession, then game after game. And after you won a game, it was just on to the next because it was so freaking intense, man. Like you didn't know you won the game. My point being, we won 16 straight games, and it's the honest to God's truth. I didn't know we did it until after hearing this reporter tell Coach it's that intense of winning the game. Like fellas, we were in our 6-game run of the tournament. We had, at that time, I still probably believe, it was the largest margin of victory for games to win a national championship. But during the game, it was like so freaking intense. We were up 30. There was times literally looking up our first round game, we're up 30, and you would have thought we were down 1, the way Coach coached the game and the way like you're so into the freaking game. It's like you look up there like, oh man, we're up like 30. We're still like drenching coaches, like coaching every freaking play. And that type of mentality has helped me since leaving there. But even though I said it was the hardest year of my coaching career, it was obviously the most gratifying as well. So you kind of combine those two things, and it was an awesome run.
Yeah, man, I've heard just from other coaches that Coach Pitino, what he demands of you is very high, but then the reward is often very high as well when you get to make runs for the national championship like that. Wanted to ask you another question about your time together. So you mentioned you were together at UMKC. What were some of the positives or challenges or things that you experienced there? Either one of you can tackle that because since you were both there.
Well, for me, it was, with Chris being there, we were on the brink of, this was year. Chris and I were together for 2 years, so this was going into our third year at being at UMKC, and then when the opportunity came to have Chris with us working together, it couldn't have come at a better time because he brought so much experience, and we were on the same page as we talked about with a lot of things. How to run a program, the detail, the scouting, how to Chris's talking about how to push players and how to get more out of players, and I needed that. Not to say other guys on staff, but Chris, we were just on the same page with all of those things, and so he took so many things off of my plate, and he was and is a head coach. And so having, we were fortunate. I think that we had another gentleman on our staff at the time, English Thorpe, who, along with Chris, those two guys, I know both of those guys are no different than me of having the opportunity to be a head coach, because both will be. And having Chris bring that knowledge and that expertise, it was our best run, 2-year run. It was our first and only at that time, or still postseason make at UMKC, and a lot of that credit goes with Chris being there and really pushing our guys. I mean, he was bringing guys in to watch film, things that didn't have to be told, he was already doing. And I'm sure Coach Martin is getting a piece of this. The guy's crazy, man. Like, he's texting me at 4 a.m, 5 a.m. What do I think about things, man? This guy doesn't sleep. There's something wrong with him. And so I'm sure Coach Martin now is getting a taste of his craziness. And I say that all in great fashion. But it was an awesome experience to be able to work with one of your best friends. But we were able to separate the two. You know what I mean? Like, it was still business, but we enjoyed as much of it as we could as friends, as best friends. And so that was awesome. To Chris's point, you don't get to do this thing a lot of times with guys that you're loyal to, and both are loyal to, and you're on the same page and being as close as we were or are.
Man, hey, Chris, I don't know what they paying you over there in Missouri, but you must be paying Kareem well for that type of
Hey,
I'm just playing, man. I mean,
he ain't
you
say
are a
that
pro.
he wasn't saying that during the games.
No,
No,
I could say stuff to him during the games that I probably couldn't say to anybody else on staff. And so he took a lot off my plate, but I put a lot more back on his plate, especially during the game.
No, man, you are a pro's pro. But, yeah, what was some of your experiences there?
Well, first of all, you know, when K Rich reached out to me, my wife was 6 months pregnant. We were going through a tough pregnancy with my twins, and we had just gotten fired. And sitting down in Mississippi, not knowing what's going on. Like the first time I've been fired, like, you know, first time. And he reached out to me, and I tell everybody this, and I don't know if I've told him this, but he really, really took a lot of pressure off my wife by reaching out and saying, look, man, you got a job. Like, I want you to come with me. Take your time. It doesn't matter when. If something better comes or you want to do something different, you can go do that. But just want you to know that, like, don't stress about not having a job. And the impact on my wife was unbelievable, because we were already going through a really, really, really stressful pregnancy. Everything that could go wrong seemed to go wrong during the pregnancy. Every test that we took was, you know, there were red flags, and obviously everything turned out wonderful. But a part of that is because of what, you know, our former teammate, my best friend reached out and said, hey man, look, don't stress. So the beginning of it was awesome. I had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't know anything about UMKC. I bought my house online in Kansas City. I didn't even look at it. And I had Kareem went out and looked at it for me one day. Like, yeah, sending him to go look at a house it's the last thing you ever want to do, but move their side scene because of my relationship with him. And again, everything he said was, I appreciate everything he said about me working together. But I mean, he knew what he was getting whenever he hired me. He knew he was going to get a loyal worker. Somebody's going to come in there and do the best for him. And he'll tell you I'm a worrier. Like, he's talking about me not sleeping. I have a hard time sleeping because I worry about things that I shouldn't worry about. That's just I can't. And I'm doing better here. And Zoe's really, really helped me. Coach Martin's really helped me with that. They had done a great job before I got there. They had put a lot of things in place to be really, really good before I even came on staff there. AT and K Rich did a great job of getting guys in there that wanted to be there. And again, like, I can't overstate this. It's a very difficult job. It's a very difficult job. But they did an unbelievable job of getting some guys in there, some guys from junior college, a local guy here and there, a transfer back from another school that had been in camp, and the pieces all really fit. Once they all figured out that they fit together, and again, a testament to K Rich's leadership and coaching and recruiting, that we did a great job as a group, coaches, players, of becoming very competitive and getting a chance to go play in the postseason and having the second best record in the history of Division I there at UMKC.
That's awesome stuff. I got another question, but man, I really want to touch on this, and then we'll close up, because I could talk to you guys forever. Obviously, we got a lot of things in common. But so Kareem, you were coming from Louisville, which is a huge budget. You know, Chris, you were coming from an SEC school with a huge budget. You know, and for people that don't know, there's at those bigger schools, like, a head coach could finish practice at 5 p.m. Sometimes they can just get on a private flight, go see a guy work out in California, because of time difference, jump back on, get back that night, sleep in his own bed that night after watching. I don't think you have that type of flexibility at UMKC. So, you know, what is it like? Was it harder, or could you tell the people, if there's young aspiring coaches or people want to know the differences? Obviously, it's a little bit more flexibility, but of trying to still recruit nationally, or are you much more regionalized when you have a much smaller budget, like at a UMKC versus a Mississippi State or versus a Louisville?
Well, I would say, it's obviously more difficult. But the great thing for myself and for Chris and even AT guys on staff that were with us, I always say, like, we didn't have the silver spoon in our mouth, so to speak. Like high major, like a Louisville budget or a Xavier budget. That wasn't how I made my career, if that makes sense. Like I've come from University of Indianapolis, Division II, to the Indiana States of the world, of which probably last or second worst budget in the Missouri Valley then and now. And so we were used to having to be creative. We were used to having to use our contacts for recruiting. And all of us had great contacts. Chris had been in the game for a long time. AT had been in the game for a long time. And so what I would say to an aspiring coach out there is make sure that the staff that you do hire, along hopefully yourself, obviously you wouldn't probably be a head coach if you don't have those connections, but you've got to use your connections wisely. And while you're trying to aspire to be a head coach, don't burn bridges, and so because there's going to become a time where you're going to, whether, it's an AAU coach or it's a high school coach or somebody, maybe they don't have anything for you right then or there that fits your needs, but don't treat people like they're meaningless. And so we were able to, Chris and AT and I, we were all able to rely on our resources to help us. Even though, you want to probably stay regionally, but we got a kid from Florida. We got some kids outside of the bread box, so to speak. And the last thing that I would leave with, if you can get somewhere, it doesn't have to be a Power 5 necessarily, but if you can get somewhere where you're going to be top 2 or top 3 resource-wise in your conference, then I think that's a good job. And if their administration is going to give you a shot that way to help you with some resources by being top 2 or top 3 in that league, then that gives you a great opportunity to be successful. And so that would be my piece of advice with that when you're trying to look for that head coaching position, is to make sure that you're going to be one of those top 3.
Man, that's awesome advice. What you said about relationships, I'm learning that. I'm still learning that, man. Treating people right.
Yeah.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, you never know where that person is going to come back. They might not always be able to help you, but they can also hurt you, by just giving someone a word like, man, that person's a jerk or whatever. I want to close up right here, and we can start with you, Chris. I want to get you guys back to your life. But obviously we're in the middle of madness with this COVID-19 stuff. How is that affecting you recruitment-wise? I've talked to other people, and they've said, for the 4 or 5-star level guys, they might not need to be seen as much. But for the 2-star, 3-star guys, or guys that aren't just jumping off at you, those are the guys that are really suffering here. From that standpoint, do you see certain kids being affected more, and how is it affecting you as an assistant coach wanting to evaluate?
Well, I mean, obviously it's affecting everybody, and because it's just not normal. Right now at this time, we would have just gotten back off the road from being out a event somewhere in the country. You'd be kind of honing in on some, depending on where you are and what you're looking for, your needs, you got the junior college national championship that got canceled. You got all these different recruiting opportunities for different level guys, everybody's affected. So sometimes I sit around and I'm going, oh man, I got, what can I do? And everybody's doing the same thing. It's not like only certain people are affected by this. Everybody's affected. And it hurts. It really does hurt those younger guys' exposure. But I don't think, I think now more so than ever, studying film on guys, asking for film, more and more film, game film on guys, phone calls you were doing anyway. Listening to, you're going to have to reach out to different types of people in different areas to get different, thoughts on different kids. But it's a tough thing. I think it's tough for everybody. And we're being creative, just like, you see all these things online about virtual tours and virtual visits, and it's what God's handed us right now. And we have to we have to do our very best. And again, there's so many ways to communicate with people. And it's the one thing that's really, really shown me is how important face-to-face, in-person contact with people is at the end of the building of a relationship.
What about you? What about you, Kareem? How's it looking like from your viewpoint at Indiana State?
Yeah, Chris hit it right on the head, and I goes back. We've been able to in this time here where we haven't been out. We've been able to we signed 3 guys during this time without guys coming on campus and doing the official visits. But it goes back to the relationships that we're talking about. I just give you a quick example of treating people the right way. We got a grad transfer, Randy Miller. Junior, he was at North Carolina Central and had led them to the NCAA tournament his junior year. They were well on their way again this year. And we were recruiting him at UMKC and decided not to go on it. He'd come to campus a few times and this and that. And long story short, he didn't. But we did things the right way. We talked to him. We treated him right. We were honest, straightforward, this and that. And now, come to find out, he's in the portal for a grad transfer, and because the relationship with the kid and the way we treated him and his dad respected how we went about our business, we got him here at Indiana State as a grad transfer without him ever stepping foot on campus. But that just goes about talking about the relationships and treating people the right way. And so I think that's going to be key. Again, all the stuff that Chris talked about, I think is huge. And Marcus, if I could do this, man, before, I know we got to wrap up here. And again, and I mean this with all sincerity, I think you're doing a hell of a job with what you're doing. I thought it was really, really awesome with your AAU coaches, with the different, whether it was Nike, whether it was Under Armour, all those guys were awesome. You're doing a hell of a job. And the last thing I want to leave with, I don't know who's going to get to watch this, man. Like when I talk about Chris Hollender being a head coach, the guy is a head coach. And he doesn't promote himself, and all of us are like this. We're really humble guys, and he's a humble guy that is a head coach, and I know whenever his opportunity presents itself, you're going to be talking about a guy who's well prepared. He's detailed in everything that he's got. He's passionate, and if anybody's watching this, they can't see the passion when he talks about West Point, when he talks about wanting to give back to kids, and he's in for it for all the right reasons. He wouldn't be with Conzo Martin if he wasn't in it for the right reasons. And honestly, he wouldn't be one of my best friends if he wasn't in it for the right reasons about people and treating people the right way. And so I know that I hope he gets his opportunity soon. And he's going to be a star as a head coach.
Man, well, I appreciate those words. I'll double down on some of that. And this may not be the best way to say it because it's kind of spontaneous. But one thing that I think that Chris has is he has the ability to go back and forth between different groups of people. Sometimes you got people that can only be cool, only good in an all black crowd, or in an all white crowd, or in an older crowd, or in a younger crowd. And he's one of those guys that can go to this room and then it also gets invited to the barbecue over the summer. You know what I'm saying? So he's got that in him. So I appreciate that, man. And another thing I'll tell you though about recruiting, and then I want to give Chris a chance to close up. But I think you guys are going to be good through this because, like we talked about, the attention to detail. I think that the coaches who are prepared and did their work early, even though you're not able to evaluate now. And those big schools that usually will try to come in late, and like if you guys have already established those relationships, which is probably why, Kareem, you guys did your work early, you knew who you wanted, you knew who was on your board, and then it made it easy to go ahead and close the deal now. And both of you guys are very detailed, oriented, and prepared type of guys. So I think guys like you are going to make it through this time a lot better than others. So anyway, Chris, man, anything you wanted to close up with before we head out?
Well, certainly appreciate the things you guys say about me, and it's amazing what sport can do for your life. And I mean, we've been friends for 25 years now, all of us. And the things that it's done for us and the relationships that we have has helped me. It's helped me. I got my family out of it. And do I have to say something nice about you? Did I do that now? Or do you guys – no, you don't want me to say something nice? Hey, let me tell you, like Kareem used to yell at me on the bench. Like we'd be in the middle of the game and I'd be like, they're switching. You can't run that. He'd be like, I know, I see it. And like, hey, man, like, all right, I won't going to suggest anything anymore to you. But no, I certainly appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate the fact that our friendship has lasted and gone as long as it has, and I appreciate all you guys have ever done for me.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys making the time to come on. I know you could be doing other things. And, man, best of luck to you this summer. Keep you and your family safe, man, and love you guys. And I'll be in touch with you soon.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Love you, man.
Thank you so much, Kareem and Chris, for joining us and sharing those stories. And it was a pleasure to catch up with you guys. Good luck to you this summer in your recruitment. And obviously in your season next year, go out and win another national title. One of you guys. Both of you can't do it because you're not on the same staff, but I'm rooting for you guys. So, moving forward, we have another great episode coming. Some of you guys reached out to me after I interviewed Josh Pastner, and you were like, man, for him to be a big-time coach, he is so engaging, a lot of energy, was totally involved. My next guest, Matt Painter, head coach at Purdue, is the exact same way. I've been knowing Matt for years. I worked his basketball camp at Eastern Illinois back in the day. And what he's been doing at Purdue, he's got that place rolling. When I was younger, we had, Gene Cady. It was kind of like the 80s basketball, it was really ground and pound and felt kind of slow. Man, Purdue led the nation in threes a couple years ago. Matt Painter has them rolling. They're always at the top of the Big Ten. And he has a lot of good experiences just from being at Eastern, and then was MVC Coach of the Year at Southern when they had their really strong run in the 2000s. And obviously what he's done at Purdue. Great guy. Great stories. We talked basketball, man. His basketball mind is awesome. You guys, if you love basketball, you really got to tune in and listen to this guy talk. I mean, his X's and O's, and really what I really like is how he goes about building a team. Like most of us coaches, we're going to have to build a team the way Matt Painter does it. We're not the Coach K's. We're not the Calipari's where we're going to get 5-star talent every year. Even in high school level, you got the prolific preps and the Mount Verds, but not everybody is going to get 5-star recruits to come to them every year. So you're going to have to do it the right way and build a culture. And Matt Painter talks about that. So make sure you guys tune in. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. And, you got to listen to the details of how to be successful, because what? That's right. Greatness is in the details, guys. Continue to like, subscribe, share. Man, thank you so much for supporting. Come back next episode. See you guys soon. Peace.